Welcome back to another episode of HealthCap Weekly Wrap. This week, we're diving into infection control, food safety, diabetes care, fall prevention, and national health goals, all of which have real implications for senior living communities. Whether you're a director of nursing, an administrator, or part of the frontline care team, there's something here for everyone. Let's jump right in.
Let's start with infection control, specifically infections related to central lines, which are often called bloodstream infections. There's a resource from the Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology, better known as APIC, that offers a step-by-step guide for preventing these types of infections. It's a foundational tool that continues to be incredibly useful for long-term care and rehab communities.
Yeah, and even if your community doesn't manage central lines often, the guide still offers a strong framework for infection prevention across the board. What stood out to me is that it's not just about protocols. It's about building a culture of accountability.
Exactly. The guide recommends a structured insertion checklist, consistent daily assessments, and routine audits. But the emphasis is really on collaboration. Nursing, infection prevention, even pharmacy and environmental services working together to reduce risks.
And I like the idea of empowering staff to speak up. If something looks off during a line insertion or maintenance, the expectation is that anyone can and should call it out. That's a mindset we need in senior living, where staff might be hesitant to question medical orders.
Right. Even though central lines might be more common in short-term rehab settings, this guide encourages us to take a proactive stance. The message is simple. Infections are preventable, and every role matters.
Now continuing with infection control, APIC also developed a companion guide focused on catheter-associated urinary tract infections, CAUTIs. And that's another critical area for long-term care providers.
UTIs are one of the most common infections in older adults, and when catheters are involved, the risk just multiplies. The guide lays out a solid prevention bundle, everything from minimizing catheter use to ensuring timely removal and using bladder scanners when possible.
One thing that jumped out at me was the language around maintaining resident dignity. You're not just preventing infections, you're reducing immobility, minimizing discomfort, and supporting independence.
Exactly. And they also include a decision tree that helps frontline staff determine whether a catheter is really needed. Sometimes we fall into the habit of, we've always done it this way, and this guide challenges that.
So what's the takeaway for senior living teams? Review your current catheter protocols. Are catheters being used appropriately? Are there champions on staff who can help monitor this? It's a good time to assess and educate.
And that brings us to a completely different type of risk: food safety citations. A recent article from McKnight breaks down what non-compliance with F812 really means for senior living communities.
And for a lot of providers, it's an overlooked vulnerability. The F812 regulation covers everything from proper food temps to how food is stored, labeled, and prepared. A misstep in any of those areas can result in a citation. And often those citations are avoidable.
What's interesting is how the article highlights that citations often come down to training or the lack of it. Staff might not be aware of how long leftovers can be held or the exact temperature that cold items need to be maintained at. But surveyors will notice.
It's also a good reminder that dining services aren't isolated from clinical outcomes. Poor food safety can lead to foodborne illness, which in older adults can escalate fast. And it damages trust with residents and families.
Yeah, and the article suggests some practical solutions too, like daily walkthroughs, using digital temperature logs, and clearly labeling expiration dates. These things don't take long but can make a big difference.
So, bottom line, F812 isn't just a regulation, it's a reflection of your commitment to quality. Make sure your dietary team is part of your overall quality improvement plan.
Shifting to chronic disease care, newsmedical.net covered a major update in clinical guidelines for type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. The shift puts lifestyle interventions at the center of care, especially in early-stage diagnosis.
And that's a big move. Instead of jumping straight to medications, the focus is now on things like diet changes, physical activity, and behavior modification. That's especially relevant in senior living, where many residents come in already diagnosed or at risk.
Exactly. And the research shows that modest lifestyle changes, losing 5 to 7% of body weight, or getting in 30 minutes of physical activity most days, can delay or even prevent progression to full-blown diabetes.
It also ties into polypharmacy concerns. For older adults, adding more meds can mean more side effects and interactions. So if we can manage blood sugar through wellness programs, we're not just treating diabetes, we're improving overall quality of life.
Right. This is a call to action for interdisciplinary teams. Nursing, dining services, activities staff, everyone can play a role. Walking clubs, healthy meal options, educational sessions, these aren't just extras. They're part of the care strategy now.
And residents want to be involved. It's empowering to know that something as simple as participating in a movement class or making better food choices can have a major impact on their health.
Speaking of quality of life, let's talk about fall prevention. The National Council on Aging released an updated National Falls Prevention Action Plan, and it's packed with strategies that go beyond the basics.
What I appreciate about this plan is that it expands the responsibility beyond just physical therapy or nursing. It emphasizes partnerships with community organizations, pharmacists, EMS, and even caregivers to address falls from all angles.
And it makes a strong case for personalized assessments. Not every fall risk is physical. Sometimes it's environmental, or medication-related, or even linked to social isolation.
Right. They also point to the importance of using evidence-based programs and integrating them into day-to-day care. So instead of treating falls like isolated events, you're building a prevention mindset into your entire workflow.
The NCOA also highlights how technology can support prevention. Things like fall detection systems or wearable devices can be useful, especially in independent or assisted living settings where supervision is less constant.
So if your community hasn't reviewed its fall prevention strategies in a while, now's a good time. Are you using personalized assessments? Are your interventions evidence-based? Is your team aligned and engaged?
And finally, let's zoom out to a national view. Healthy People 2030, the U.S. government's public health roadmap. It's not new, but it's still one of the best ways to align your community's health goals with broader national priorities.
There are more than 350 measurable objectives, and many of them speak directly to aging populations. Things like reducing preventable hospitalizations, increasing the use of preventive services, and addressing social determinants of health.
They also focus heavily on mental health, chronic disease management, and health equity. It's a holistic view of wellness that goes beyond diagnoses and into things like access, communication, and environment.
What's helpful is that communities can use these objectives to guide their own QAPI initiatives or to support grant writing. If you're trying to justify the value of a new wellness coordinator or falls prevention program, pointing to Healthy People 2030 can back you up with national data.
And it also sends a message to residents and families that your community isn't just reacting, it's aligning with forward-thinking public health standards.
So whether you're developing a new strategic plan or just refining care practices, Healthy People 2030 is a solid resource to pull from.
And that wraps up this week's HealthCap Weekly Wrap. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, you can find all the details on these stories in the weekly roundup on Angie's blog at healthcapusa.com/Angie's blog.
We'll see you next time.